Hello, I'm Stan Shikuma, a longtime member of From Hiroshima to Hope, and your host for this program. Hajimemashite. As we have done every year on August 6th in Seattle since 1984, we gather in hope. Hope is the door that lets us walk through both personal and societal grief into a new world. Hope is the fiber that binds us together when the road seems too long and the darkness too deep. Hope is the light that guides us forward towards peace and justice. This year marks the 75th anniversary of the United States' use of atomic bombs to destroy the cities of Hiroshima on August 6, 1945, and Nagasaki 3 days later on August 9, 1945. We observe this solemn anniversary by reflecting on our responsibility for war and for peace, drawing inspiration from the words of the hibakusha, the atomic bomb survivors, through poetry, music, and the moving images of candle-lit lanterns floating on water. The 75th anniversary arrives in a year defined by a devastating pandemic, a disastrous economic crisis, and a rising and imperative call for racial justice in this country. As we participate in From Hiroshima to Hope, we renounce all forms of violence and injustice and join millions around the world in saying, Black Lives Matter, as we also say, never again to nuclear weapons, a technology which gives us the power to extinguish hundreds of thousands of lives in an instant. Thank you for attending our virtual 2020 event and for sharing in our commemoration of far too many lives lost to violence, the violence of war, the violence of racism, the violence of poverty. And we thank you for joining us in our commitment to peace, justice, and human dignity for all. Welcome from Hiroshima.
もうすぐ寄宿舎近い時にピカッと光って、そして光ったと思って、それと青い炎も見て、危ないと思ってから防空壕へ行こう思ったんですけど、防空壕へ行くまで時間がなくて、すぐ寄宿舎の入り口に入ったんですよね。そしたらそこでそのまま消して叫び続けて、しまいには声が枯れて、これ誰もいないとこで叫んでも仕方がない思って、そしてもうせめて私ここで死ぬのなら誰かに知ってもらいたいな思ったり、いろんなこと考えたり、そしてちょっと人声がしたらまた大きな声で助けて助けて言って、それでもやっぱり下の方だからその人たちも通り過ぎてしまって、でもうそれから諦めて、せめてここで私が死ぬということ誰かに知ってもらいたいな思いながら、もう諦めたから南無阿弥陀仏唱えて、で一人一人のね、お父さんお母さんってそれを習えて、兄弟の名前、友達の名前もみんな呼んでさよなら言って、そしてもう諦めてた時にまた人声がしたんですよね。でまた叫んで、そしたらその人が掘り出してくださったんです。その掘り出してくださった方はもうおじいさんと若い息子でしたけど、で掘り出された時は壁土やらないならかぶって全身真っ白です。でありがとう言いたくても声が出ないんですよ。ちょっとボロを下げたような感じなんです、皮膚が。焼けてね、垂れ下がるんです。そんなのを覚えてます。だから本当に地獄ですね。でもその時でも原爆にあった言うと、よそから来た人は変な目で見るんです。
その当時、
その
同じ広島。
そうです。広島でも会ってない人もいましたからね、その頃はもうよそから入ってきたりして、だから原爆にあったことは一切言わなかった。
まあちょっとだいぶあるからね、30、どんどんみんな被爆者が自転車やもうギャカーとかね、大発不みんな学校に連れてきたんですよ。で頃言っても私も町言っても小さかったから、婦人会のメンバーも少ないし、それからみんなそれぞれがみんながね包帯でね、看病ってすることないんですけどね、で私もかわいそうでね、もうでそういうことがもう65年経って本当に他のことを忘れてるんだけど、本当によう忘れますよ。夏休みが始まって勉強できないが机にもう皮がくっついてるじゃないですか。みんなこうして寝かされてるんだから、だからちょうど私の教室だった何教室か使ったわけなんですよね。それでくっついて勉強できない、だから。
I'm Nikki Nojima Louis. Here is To the United Nations. It was given as a speech by Mashiro Sadanaga and translated by Yukiko Yamazaki into English. I arrive here at United Nations to listen to all of you talk about disarmament and to protest against insane spread of weapon in whatever way I could. But, even before I enter this building, I could not help stare at East River. Yes, the river. It was Cannon River that flowed by weapon manufacturing plant I work at in Hiroshima. There was about 5,000 workers in plant, mostly women, men fighting in war. It was very hot morning August 6, 1945. The sun was shining very bright, and I was polishing a pair of sunglasses. Suddenly there was bright light that turned sky into furnace. For a moment I could not open my eyes. Then I grab helmet and run to window, thinking it only small bomb. And I see boy, small boy, begin to melt. His skin crumble off from head down, eyes wide open. Then blast pushed me back into room, and room began to cave in on top of me. It all happened in just few seconds. Everywhere cries and screaming around me, although at first I think bomb hit only our plant. I crawl out of rubble and shout, "I coming, I help!" But there was only few who could be helped. About 1,500 of my fellow workers already dead. 500 more, nakunarimashita, died the next day. Inside building, most people die of injury. Outside, from heat and radiation. I try pulling people away from falling building. When I go outside, I cannot believe my eyes. City of Hiroshima gone. No more buildings standing, only train station, bank, newspaper office, part of department store. Everything else gone. I began dragging people into street. Everywhere, people screaming for water, running, crawling to Cannon River. I see burnt remains of mother clutching burnt remains of baby to her body. Still, people keep screaming and crawling to river. In 1 hour, between 10,000 and 30,000 bodies floating in river. Parts of body moving because fish feeding on corpses. Later, trucks take injured away for medical treatment, and trucks leaking blood into street. I look back and see more people running to river, more and more people. I was 21 years old then. Today, I am old person. But I still see effect of bomb all over Japan. Thousands of people still suffer and die from radiation disease, and hibakusha, victim of bomb, worry about health of children and grandchildren. I am only little person, not important like world leaders here at United Nations, but I know in a way you do not know how important to stop nuclear armamento. I would like to take you from this building on East River back to Cannon River so many, many years ago. I would like to show you. Many years ago, I go to Pearl Harbor and stand next to American father who sees son's name on Arizona memorial. We both cry together. Madness. It is madness. Thank you.
I remember really well the first Hiroshima to go. It was 1985. And in the early 90s, there was great fear all over the country, fear of nuclear war between the United States and Soviet Union. In the beginning, that particular year, the main focus was on preventing nuclear war and ridding the world of nuclear weapons, which was everyone's dream at that time. And we had already presented a couple of indoor events the previous years on August 6th, but this was going to be something quite different. My passion from the beginning was, first of all, to have the event be multicultural, to have representative artists and speakers, musicians from different parts of that represented the diversity that's here in our community. And so we've held that tradition all these years. I felt, and others also felt, that the issue that we could bring to people, an issue of light and hope and healing, was much broader than trying to stop nuclear weapons. That there was no peace without justice, for one thing, that we needed to teach people to practice nonviolence in every part of their lives, and also that we wanted to see peace and nonviolence at all levels of society, from domestic violence to the street violence and police violence that we see today, all the way to war. As I grew older, in my old age, I feel so good having done this and to give this to my corner of the world. So thank you.
Warm greetings. My name is Troy Osaki, and I am a poet, community organizer, and attorney here in Seattle, Washington. I'm very honored to be part of today's program to commemorate the victims of the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki 75 years ago. Although my family had already left Japan for the US, they were also impacted by the war in different ways, such as incarceration. Today, I'll be sharing a poem about my grandparents' experience during and after wartime. I'd like to offer this to all those who are working towards lasting peace for everyone, especially to those who are being significantly targeted today. That said, thank you all for having me. I hope you enjoyed today's program. This poem is titled, My Grandparents Plant a Pear Tree in the Backyard of Their Home in Northeast Portland. When my grandpa asks, say, how many jars do you think we have left? My grandma replies, gosh, at least 6 or 7. They offer me a pint of slices they canned months before. Tell me how canned pears last years beyond expected. I trust that what they know about preservation is airtight. When the season is kind, they gather a bundle of barrel-shaped fruits, bury a handful of wedges beneath 2 splashes of water, then sprinkle in sugar before sealing them snug. I'm not surprised my grandparents know preservation like a past life, like they've practiced for centuries now. For as long as I've known them, they've kept this family alive. Once, before tending to a backyard full of fruits, my grandpa was a school teacher. In his first interview, he was told the school board chairman doesn't like Japs, and rather than let the corners of his body bruise like a rotting peel, he replied, "Is that right, you say? He doesn't like Japs. Well then, I'll take the job." Before that, my grandma was snatched from her family's grove, boxed away in a warehouse made of barbed wire. She found sugar in whatever wicked shelf America shoved her in, and still, when the war ended, it didn't disappear. Years later, in a schoolhouse hallway, a boy who smelled of famine yelled, "You must be mad because your country lost." And I don't know if any word has been invented for that kind of patience, to soothe a rage that would burn 1,000 acres of orchard if given the chance. Maybe miracle is the closest I can think of. Maybe my grandparents are so good at not giving up, they gain another life whenever someone fails to poison the patch of soil they breathe on. Maybe in a past life, they were blooming pears that outlived the coldest winter. Thank you all.
I, Carletta Carrington Wilson, a literary and visual artist, am honored to join with From Hiroshima to Hope in commemoration of the 75th anniversary. That immense cloud shape and form is sculpted in memory, informing our present, enemy to every living thing. And yet, met by an instructive force, engendering peace, accountability, and a reckoning by those who stand against this ultimate disrespect of life. African Americans have protested against nuclear weapons since 1945. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Toni Morrison, Alice Walker, and others linked the bombings in Hiroshima and Nagasaki to ongoing struggles against racism and colonialism. How do we shape a future in which the sanctity of life is a transformative mandate actively pursued in this war-weary world? With imagination. And so I offer an excerpt of a poem of Stone and Bone, written during a residency at the studio of sculptor James W. Washington Jr. Its lines and stanzas are composed from the titles of books found in Mr. Washington's library. This is what Mr. Washington has to say about imagination. Other words, with imagination, you can go into an unknown world and bring into a material world things beforehand have never been seen before. Poem of Stone and Bone. Along civilization's trail, something went wrong. What to say? If they come in the morning, king's blood royal, monkey on a string, substance and shadow the uncalled, yesterday, today, and forever, bearing witness to the truth. The way of the wizard, mystics and Zen masters journey into light, souls on fire, born to rebel. Temples, tombs, and hieroglyphs. This is what we found. The unheavenly city, city of the great king, the eternal city, child of two worlds, miracle in stone, born in blood, walking on water, remaking men, jazz men, 2 or 3 gathered together, 7 came through, 13 against the odds, moving on up, master men making a go of life. Steer by a star. Stars of thought. Go up for glory, the crowning experience, the beautiful necessity beyond east and west. Here is your war. 4 days, 1,000 days. Blind spots, seeds of conflict, the tear in the cup, the yoke. Unquenchable black fires, wings of the morning, ravens, crows, magpies, jays, lifting as they climb unto the hills. Moon, moon, blood on the moon. Beneath the stone, the royal path of life, the luminous darkness parting the water, excuse me, while I kiss the sky. This side of innocence, eyelids of morning, cosmic magnetism, water and ice, the magic of honey, every living creature, a feast of flowers, the pupil of the eye, the invisible fulcrum in tune with the infinite. This wonder world, library of mesmerism, the uncommon, commonplace, murmurs of earth, the incredible egg, the key of the mystery, the great within, the inward sea, the invisible empire. Here I stand, beside the still waters, the man who talks with the flowers, the man who found out why the beautiful ones are not yet born. Hear me talking to you. I heard the owl call my name. The forge note, a new song in a strange land. Heat, sound, and light, blood, sweat, and tears. Answer to history. Let there be sculpture, poems of cabin and field, buried cities recovered, landmarks and surface markings, the evidence of things not seen. Thank you.
We hope you have been inspired to join us in our work to rid the world of nuclear weapons and eliminate the threat of a nuclear holocaust. We hope you will do all in your power to bring more compassion and kindness into the world around us. And know that the power to promote peace, your power, shines in many ways. You can share this video and the story of the hibakusha, the atomic bomb survivors, with others. You can contact your members of Congress to demand that we reduce spending on war and the weapons of war. You can support the international campaign to abolish nuclear weapons. You can join movements for justice that create the conditions for peace, such as the movement for racial justice in support of Black lives, or the struggle to free immigrants and refugees detained while crossing the US border or living elsewhere within this country. You can register and vote for candidates that support peace and nuclear disarmament. The lantern floating ceremony, called toro nagashi, is an adaptation of an ancient Japanese ritual, most often associated with Obon, the Buddhist festival honoring the dead, in which lanterns representing the spirits of the deceased are floated down rivers and out to sea while blessings are offered that they might return in peace and safety to the spirit world. Since World War II, people repeat this ceremony in Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and many cities throughout the world in remembrance of the victims of the atomic bombings. At our annual ceremony in Seattle, the lanterns represent not only those victims of war, but also all people who have died of violence anywhere. The lanterns symbolize our commitment to hope, the light that can guide us forward until, in the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., justice runs down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. We know that peace is a process and not an endpoint. Peace is a way of living and must be continually nurtured, lest it wither away or die of neglect. Peace only exists when shared with others. So we thank you for joining us today on our journey from Hiroshima to hope. Arigatou gozaimashita.